All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Eric, and I am a director of engagement here at GiveGab, and I'll be pulling the levers on the webinar today. Just a few housekeeping notes before we jump into the presentation. Everybody's on mute, but we encourage questions, encourage engagement in the webinar chat and also the Q&A panel. So if you got any questions, please post them in the Q&A and let us know where you're calling in from. The webinar is going to be recorded, so we will revisit this with you all afterwards. We'll share it. And with that, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of how we'll spend our time together today. So the first thing we'll do is we'll meet our tremendous panel of rural community leaders, and then each panelist will share how they're leveraging GivingTuesday to empower their nonprofits to reach larger audiences and identify new donors. Then we'll talk through some specific strategies and hear what the future of fundraising is for their community. And then lastly, we'll save some time to answer any questions you all might have. Before we introduce the panel though, would love to just launch a couple poll questions here, get some folks input on things. And so this first question is, how many nonprofits in your community are currently fundraising on GivingTuesday? So majority, maybe about half, some, or few to none. Give it a few seconds here, see how we're doing. All right, we're getting close to all attendees, so I will end the poll, share results. Looks like we're pretty evenly split. We got some that majority of their nonprofits are utilizing GivingTuesday, some half, some. Good to see only very few to none is in the minority there. So interesting to see there. And then I will launch one more question here. And this is nonprofit capacity building an area of focus for your organization? Yes, currently an area of focus, or no, not a current area of focus. Just get a sense. I know we have a lot of community foundations, a lot of United Ways on the call, so curious what everyone's focus is. Another few moments here. We're just over 70% participation. I'll go ahead and share results. 82% are focused on nonprofit capacity building in some way. So that's really great. You've come to the right place. I'm going to stop sharing, and then I am going to introduce our moderator of today's discussion, my colleague, Molly.
Thanks, Eric. Hi, and welcome, everyone. Thank you for finding the time to join us. We're excited for you to hear from our three philanthropic leaders about how they're utilizing innovative fundraising solutions to keep that momentum up around GivingTuesday, especially in such a crowded space. My name is Molly Heslin. I'm a director of engagement here at GiveGab. We work with organizations all over the country to help them implement digital fundraising solutions to help their communities raise more money and meet those communities' unique needs. So today we'll be chatting with three of our incredible panelists. Kirk he's the Communications and Fund Development Manager at Cattaraugus Region Community Foundation, currently running Cattaraugus Gives. We've got Wendy, who's the Executive Director of the United Way of Greene Cou, currently running Give Green. And we have Victoria here, who's the Leadership Manager of U.S. Communities at GivingTuesday, and then also a veteran of a GivingTuesday Giving Day herself. So all three of our leaders are utilizing or have used Giving Days as a way to implement innovative, sustainable, digital-first fundraising for their communities on GivingTuesday. And for background, for anyone who might not know, Giving Days are 24-hour or longer digital fundraising events aimed at rallying communities together to maximize awareness, engagement, and donations for a common local philanthropic cause. So each panelist comes from different communities. They have different motivations and goals and outcomes. They are pretty varied and diverse, but seem to work everywhere and are a great driver for engagement. So I'm going to let our panelists share a little bit about themselves and their work. We'll open a panel discussion, and then from there we'll move into audience Q&A. So as Eric mentioned, please drop your questions in the Q&A tool, and we'll be able to answer those for you. So to kick things off, Kirk, tell us a little bit about you and Cattaraugus Gives.
Yeah, so we are here in the Cattaraugus County region of Western New York. So for those that don't know where that is, which is not unusual, we're about an hour and a half south of Buffalo, right along the Pennsylvania border. So we're a pretty small community with not a very large population base. But our foundation had discussed the possibility of doing a Giving Day for a number of years. And we actually started our Giving Day through a program called New York Gives, which some people here may vaguely remember. And that was a really nice thing because we were able to do that with, very little risk by just taking advantage of a statewide program. But when that ended in 2018, we decided to pivot and lead our own independent Giving Day. And it's been kind of a whirlwind, but it's been really successful for us. In the last 4 years, our program has raised together over $1 million for our nonprofits here in our region. Our most successful year was 2021, when we raised $358,772 in 24 hours, which for a community of our size is a pretty incredible figure. So we're very proud of the success that our day has had over the years. For the last 3 years, we've been able to increase the number of participating nonprofits in our community, and each day we have raised over $250,000 for our nonprofits.
Thank you so much, Kirk. That's incredible, and I love how that journey has really framed where you've ended up today. Wendy, let's hear a little bit about you and Give Greene.
Okay. So Kirk says he's from a small community, but I'm guessing ours is maybe smaller. Actually, I'm not guessing, I can tell for sure. So Greene County is in Upper East Tennessee. We're between Knoxville and Bristol. So Greene County borders on North Carolina, but we're not that far from Kentucky or Virginia either. Our community is very small. So Greenville, which is the county seat, has about 18,000 people in Greenville, and then the county as a whole has about 65,000 people in it. So United Way has been in this community for 65 years, and we've been raising in the $400,000 range for a long time. This past year, 2022, was our very first Giving Day. And this is a new endeavor for us. And in our first day, we raised just under $9,300. We had just right at 60 donors, and we had 13 organizations participating. We only opened it to the folks that we knew, so we kind of controlled how many organizations were in it, but we look forward to expanding all 3 of those numbers. United Way of Greene County actually has other partners other than the ones that participated, but here's our main bottleneck. I am the only employee. So we are limited to the things that I know how to do and the things that I like to do. So that's how our Giving Day is kind of contained.
I like that, Wendy. What you need to do, but what you like to do as well. And that's really the driver of good work. Great. And now passing over to Victoria. Victoria, can you tell us about your journey from Give 906 to Giving Tuesday?
Absolutely. So I'm Victoria Lenhart. I am the leadership manager for U.S. Communities with Giving Tuesday. I was born, raised, and still reside in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. If you're not familiar with that, I'm going to do the hands, right? So we've got this part of Michigan everyone is familiar with, and I actually live in the second hand way up here on the shores of Lake Superior. So the middle of everywhere, I like to think of it as. Similar in size to what Wendy was saying, our community has about 20,000 people. The county is about 65,000. I grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, 3 hours east, 13,000. So I'm very familiar with small towns and rural areas. So in right around 2018, actually, it's funny, this is like a theme here. The nonprofits in the area, we were all doing Giving Tuesday, right? But I worked for a capacity building center, and from the entire Upper Peninsula region, we were hearing Giving Tuesday is really big. People care about supporting local. How do we do something to really band together? And 906 is the area code for the entire Upper Peninsula. So people have a lot of pride in 906. And so we named it Give 906. And it was an all ways of giving campaign. So we had some organizations that recruited volunteers. We had some that focused on raising funds, and we had some that focused on collecting items. And at the same time, Giving Tuesday communities were popping up all over the US. You can see on the map there are a lot of community-wide Giving Tuesday activations. And so when they had a spot on their team, I was very excited to join it and to be the one that works with rural communities, because that is my jam. I love my community. I love where I live. And I know people in rural communities have that connection and that real fabric of community. So very excited to be here and talk more about my experience in small towns.
That's perfect. Thank you, Victoria. Yeah, and especially we'd love to see that concentrated rising tides lift all boats that I think that you all share in your experiences. I'm going to latch on to something that all three of you mentioned, a little bit about the origins of your giving days, but given some of the challenges as far as staff capacity or just widespread regions, how did you all decide to host a giving day as the solution? And maybe Kirk, I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be completely honest, we kind of stumbled into, where we are now. I actually was talking to someone the other day, and they said, I wish I knew that when we set the date for our giving day, that it would be almost impossible to change it. But I actually wouldn't change ours. It's worked out really great. We thought, well, let's take advantage of some of the energy of the Giving Tuesday movement, nationwide and do something. And we kind of fell into that through the New York Gives program, obviously. But what we very quickly found is that it was a really great opportunity for, like you said, nonprofit capacity building, and being able to, I think, also help our nonprofits find like a toolkit that best works for them in the Giving Tuesday infrastructure was really important, because it is like a really big, widespread day with a lot going on. I think about like the gigantic Facebook match that everyone goes after that is then gone in about 45 seconds. So being able to like give them an infrastructure to really take advantage of that day was super important for us. And it's had, a lot of other widespread implications since that have been really great for our nonprofits, but it really did kind of start there as a way to help them and also to centralize some resources so that they could have a focus and take advantage of an important day.
You touched on a few things, those widespread implications and that centralization of resources. I'm curious, Wendy, thinking about why you chose to start hosting Give Greene, was there alignment there on Kirk's experience, or would you say that it was a different sort of assessment for if a giving day was right for you all?
it was really a different sort of assessment. I appreciate what Kirk is saying, and if we had had those types of factors, I'm sure they would have been considered. Our major impetus was, if you know anything about United Ways at all, and I know many of you are from United Ways, our bread and butter is the employee giving campaign. And if you know anything about United Ways, you will know that that is not a growing funding model. So our biggest challenge in a small community was, how can we increase our revenue or our contributions without competing with the same organizations that we then turn around and give those dollars to.
Mhm.
So, because, you know, everybody does golf tournaments and everybody does galas and everybody does things. And we had specifically and intentionally not gotten into that space. So when we were looking around for what are our other options, this is the one that made sense. And the more we got to know about about GivGab and using that digital platform and how our agencies could participate or how our partners could participate, this feels like a very, very much like a United Way type of fundraiser. So that is why we got involved. It was a commitment from our board for a, for a giving day, and they jumped in for a 3-year commitment up front. Because of course we realized that the first one is not going to be the best one, or we hope that the first one is not going to be the best one. So that was where we were coming from, is how could our United Way, one, have a different type of funding model, and then also how can we keep the organizations that we partner with involved.
That's perfect. Yeah, absolutely. I see, two different communities with two different challenges, coming to the same conclusion, but for different reasons. And I'm curious, Victoria, both from your time as starting Give 906, but then also now being part of that larger Giving Tuesday community, what are the values what do you see, to Kirk's point about the power of centralizing resources?
Absolutely. Collective giving is such a cool strategy, right? It's one of my favorites. And I think that in these small communities and rural areas, it offers a place where it's like a one-stop shop. You think of like a Chamber of Commerce dollars. I don't know if all of your small towns have that, but like we have the I Love Local campaign, and you can get dollars that you can spend at any of the small businesses, and providing that sort of infrastructure for the nonprofits. That I will never forget. I had a program officer call me from a statewide foundation one time asking for contact information for a few organizations because they didn't have their phone number or email on their website. And so like building the kind of capacity through the giving day to be like, here's what you need on a giving form. Here are the things to think through for digital marketing. And being able to provide that in a community that maybe doesn't have access to resources or training, or doesn't even know that it's something they should consider. I think that was my favorite part of Give 906. It was the building capacity and bringing new ideas to nonprofits that don't have as much access. And it was pre-COVID at that time too. So yeah.
I love that. I like how you said that as well. The access of resources to make what they might be doing independently or not doing on their own. Really giving them those tools as well, not just the platform. So you've all shared a little bit about how you felt about that first year and how that started, but I'm curious how all of your communities responded in that first year, and now and how they continue to respond to it. And maybe we'll go the other way now. Victoria, can I pass it back to you one more time?
Absolutely. So from a Give 906 perspective, last year was my first year that I wasn't super involved. So I don't know the results from last year. But in previous years, you know, we'd see more organizations joining, and my favorite were always the ones who were skeptical the year before, and then they'd see the success of this like cohort coming together, and they would be involved the next year. That was always like, okay, we're on to something, it's getting out. And I think the hardest part for us was the vastness of the region, right? Because we served the entire Upper Peninsula. And same being on the GivingTuesday team now, like I serve the entire United States. So understanding what works, even if it's, for example, the Upper Peninsula, what works in a town of 300 looks different than what works in a town of 20,000. And being willing to go to the community and let them share what they know to be the solutions, right? It's not my job to go in and say, you're going to do this in this way, but it's my job to go in and say, how can I help? What is the solution? How can we help you get the resources? So that was my approach to both Give 906, and now I'm working with GivingTuesday campaigns across the US.
I'm so happy to see you're getting some well-deserved love in the chat for all of that support. Wendy, what about you? How about, especially in that different approach from, like Victoria said, town of 300 versus town of 30,000. How did your community respond for that first year of Give Green, and how are they responding now?
So a couple of things. One, if you saw, we had right at 60 donors to our first giving day, and the excitement was a large number of them were new to us. And that is not typically the case. Most of our donors to United Way are the tried and true friends who are getting older, and you know, that's of concern. So we were very excited about that. Now, our organizations or our partners who participated with us, it was a range from, sure, we'll do whatever you want us to do, to dragging them kicking and screaming into the fold, and you know, registering them myself and getting them to put pictures up onto their thing and to customize their site, and helping them, you know, the ones that are even less social media savvy and or computer literate than I am, to do things like share their landing site and all kinds of different stuff. So it was a range. I can't wait to see how they do this year, because I think I have very enthusiastic, yes, we want to do it again, folks. And then I also have people who are already saying, oh, we want to participate. You didn't invite us last year. But then I know that I will have some of my organizations who say, what's in it for me? Nothing happened. For me, I didn't see anything. But so we're just in the process of getting all that back together. So I wish that I could answer that question a little better. But in terms of community awareness, it's hard to do the first one because they don't have the foggiest idea what I'm talking about. And we really struggled with that. But hopefully we will get better this year and find out more about what they think of things.
I would hazard a guess that we will. And I think it's something that all three of you have started to latch onto, is that you know, the community members and the organizations who get it, and then the ones who get that FOMO afterwards and say, hey, why didn't I get invited? So Kirk, I think in that framework of you know, your nonprofit participation, but then also your community engagement, how did that go for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you would be wrong to assume that when if this is your first one, if you launch it, that there won't be confusion, because there's going to be confusion. I mean, it's a unique model, especially like you said, Wendy, in the space where so much of the fundraising is coming from golf tournaments and bake sales and things like that, while they're great, are maybe not the most efficient fundraising model in the world. So there was a lot of that when we started, but like everyone has said, when you go through the process, all it takes is one organization to be very successful and become your model child, so to speak, and then you're off to the races. And I think the community, likewise, the first couple of years was maybe a little bit like, what in the heck is this? But as soon as we stepped out on our own and started leading Cattaraugus Gives independently, we were in kind of a unique situation where we had a little bit of a framework set there. So there was a little bit less of that confusion. But I think especially with the first year, it was really boots on the ground doing a lot of hard work. But as soon as we saw a return on that work of $100,000, putting that on the front page of the newspaper, people did not think that was possible to do here. So as soon as they saw that, I think that we've built on that momentum. So then, when you hit a number like 350 in a community like ours, people are really astonished. So that just organic growth has been huge, but it's been really exciting in our community. I think, people come up to me in the grocery store and say, hey, when is Cattaraugus Gives this year? Which it's always on the same day, but it is that excitement, even for like the non-traditional donor, that has really been a big impact.
I really like that, Kirk, and I think that there's so much to be said about that recognition for Giving Tuesday for the nonprofits, but then also a day for your community to come around to, and even if they might not know what's happening on Giving Tuesday, but they know it's Cattaraugus Gives Day, so that's something. I don't think it's any secret that giving days can be sometimes a labor of love. And through that lens, I'd like to know what was each of your favorite moments, and why. And Kirk, I'm going to start with you now.
Yeah, so they certainly are staff intensive. For the most part, I know Wendy's a team of one. We have a team of 5 in our office, but primarily in the Cattaraugus Give space. That is, I just kind of handle most of that. So as like the primary point person, that's always a blessing and a curse at times. But yeah, I mean, there have been some really exciting moments. But I think the one that I always go back to, the very first year that we were doing this through New York Gives Day, I was working with an animal rescue, and they said, well, they basically told me, look, I do not know how to fundraise. And I said, that's okay, participate, and I think we'll figure it out. That first year they raised, I think, $2,500, which for them was a number that they had a hard time believing. Now they raise about $25,000 in 24 hours. So, as somebody who is, yes, a funder, but also very invested in nonprofit capacity building and relationship building in our community, seeing quite literally a nonprofit go stronger over the years to that level is, for me, that's the real payoff.
That's a success story. Those are really the ones we want to put on the pedestal. I mean, to not only teach them how to give them a fish, but teach them how to fish. I think that has consequent benefits year round. Wendy, I don't know, what do you think? Any real love stories that come to your mind?
Yes, our best organization that did the best was not the one that I expected. You have organizations that have really good staffs and you will assume will do well, but the organization that did the best job was, like me, one staff person, and she really harnessed the power of her board. And I don't know how she did it, but I could not explain enough to my board how to do peer-to-peer fundraising and actually get them to do it. We talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. So I was thrilled to have her step up and show what could be done. And so I am looking forward this year, as we get ready for our Giving Tuesday, to having her explain it to my board. So, but they did a great job. They had their own match dollars. She really embraced it and went forward and appreciated the opportunity that we were able to provide. Whereas some of the organizations maybe thought that we were going to do all of that for them. So that was my favorite part of it. But I also want to say, here's a startling thing. Kirk and Victoria were talking before the webinar, and I think it was Kirk who said, I don't know why we do it 24 hours, because who wants to be up for 24 hours? And I didn't know I was supposed to be up and paying attention at midnight when mine started, because just FYI, I wasn't. So, and it still worked. So if anybody has concerns about that, it'll be fine.
That's perfect, Wendy. And that's what a tremendous story. I mean, to talk about, harnessing that feeling of rising tides and communal fundraising and those resources to be able to look at a one staff nonprofit and say, do you see what they're doing? That's what we've got to do. To see that at a community-wide level must be crazy. Victoria, this might be a hard question for you. I know you work with not only with Give 906, but all of the communities that you work with. Is there one that's really top of mind for you?
Yes, it was from my time with Give 906. It was 2020, so pandemic season, and the Upper Peninsula is a tourist area, right? A lot of you in smaller communities, tourism is a big driver of the economy. And we had recognized that a lot of people love our area that don't live here. And we were able to get connected with a reporter from MLive, which MLive has a variety of news outlets under the bridge where the trolls live downstate. These are in cities like Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, areas near Detroit, where the other 97% of Michigan's population lives. And they did an amazing spotlight piece on Give 906 and how, even though the Upper Peninsula is 30% of the landmass, it's only 3% of the population. There are over 2,000 nonprofits that serve the Upper Peninsula, and here's some of what they do. And we had like this diaspora giving effect where people who had visited, who had gone to university in the area, were interested in how they could give back. And we'd never thought about it like that. It was just incredible to see our little region and our small population being highlighted at the state level on Giving Tuesday. And I will never forget that.
That's wonderful. And to take that data then, and be able to continue to steward those donors and rock in, you're really accessing so many new donors. I think that's been another interweaving thread in our conversation that Wendy and Kirk also brought up, the power for those nonprofits. I know we've got some solid questions rolling in for you all, so I'm going to wrap up with just one more. What advice would you give to your peers considering hosting their first Giving Tuesday Giving Day, especially those who might also be staffs of one or the one point of contact for the Giving Day? And Kirk, can we start with you?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I would say to just take the plunge. It is going to be a lot of work, and it is really hard to get around that. It's a lot to manage, and you're going to have to make yourself very available to your nonprofits. And I do think that actually that's something that's kind of unique in rural communities is, more than likely your nonprofits know you on a first name basis, and they will call and they will email you at every hour of the night. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be available 24/7. I think that that's been a part of the reason that we've been so successful. But all in all, I mean, I think the relationships that you will form with your nonprofits will strengthen. You're going to build stronger nonprofits that are going to be able to use the grant funding that you provide throughout the year better and have a greater impact. And likewise, I think the community is going to look at you as a true like torchbearer for doing something like this, because it has an impact. We all do good work throughout the year, but when you can channel that into 24 hours and say, we raised this for our community, that's a big deal. So I would do it. I would take the plunge and, worry about the sleep and stuff later. You'll be fine. And you don't have to not sleep. As Wendy said, you can sleep plenty.
I know. I think, Wendy, I think you've already given us the answer is that, go to bed at midnight. That's okay. But what would be your second piece of advice?
I think that Kirk hit it right on the head. Sometimes you just have to take the plunge. And we are lucky because my board and our organization has been in business long enough that we have the resources to be able to invest in something like this, even knowing that, for example, the first year we didn't cover our costs for what was given to us. So you have to be able to do that, but taking the plunge is the way to go, because I didn't even know what all would be included in operating something like this, or how best to get it done. So we stumbled our way through it, but the good news is we will be much better in this second year than we were in the first year. So that is our saving grace, and we are looking forward to it.
That's perfect. Yes, and we do see that compounding, year one, year two, and then year three. It is definitely a proven concept to grow and to continue growing. Victoria, same question to you. What advice might you have? And then if you wanted to take this opportunity to plug how you could be of help as part of Giving Tuesday, I think we can allow that.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. I didn't want to come on here and like sell the Leader Network, but so my piece of advice is to get connected with other people doing giving days. I think like it in the Upper Peninsula, it was Give 906 was the only one, right? And so I didn't have anyone to bounce ideas off of until another one popped up in our community that was ran by a health foundation, and it's health organizations only in their 4-county service area, Give Copper Country. And once Michael and I were both working on it, we were able to bounce ideas off of each other on what was working and what wasn't. And then in 2019, I got connected with the Giving Tuesday Leader Network, and I was able to bounce ideas off people in similar sized communities that were not in Michigan. They were all over the US, and hear what was working and what wasn't. And it was really inspiring to bring home new ideas and be like, I heard about this, let's try it. And so now my job as the leadership manager is to be the point person for community giving days that happen on Giving Tuesday. So if you decide that you want to do something like this, in addition to all the support that GivGab is going to give you, you can also get connected with the Giving Tuesday Leader Network. And we do calls, we have some in-person opportunities to get together and just talk about what is happening with your giving day, what are the trends you're seeing, and learn from each other. Learning from peers has been, I think, the highlight of my involvement and my biggest piece of advice. So I know some of our Giving Tuesday leaders are on. If there's something that I forgot to mention that you found very valuable, stick it in the chat, let everyone know.
Thank you, Victoria. Yes, and for all of the GivGab partners as well, anything that we've done to maybe take some of that load off, put it in the chat alongside what Giving Tuesday has done for you. This has been such an incredible conversation. We're going to move on to we've had a lot of questions come in, so I'm going to turn it over to Eric and answer those audience questions.
Yeah, and before I launch our first poll, before we take our first audience Q&A, I'm going to launch another poll. But first, I'll let the panelists get a sneak peek on the question so you can think about it. But Lisa asked, some of our past partners in rural areas have mentioned the challenge of unstable or low-speed internet as an inhibitor in participation. Have you encountered that, and how can we adapt and respond? So while you guys are thinking over that, I'm going to launch this final poll. And it's, would you be interested in learning more about how you can partner with GivGab to leverage Giving Tuesday for your community? So we'll leave this up as we answer this question. And Victoria, maybe does Giving Tuesday, or do you have any experience with the challenge of unstable internet?
Okay, I have a funny story, you guys. The fiber optic cable that serves the Upper Peninsula was cut at 4 a.m. the morning of Giving Tuesday. So I woke up and had no internet. So I totally feel that question, Lisa. I ended up finding some at the local university. That's another story for another time. But yes, and especially in some of the smaller communities, even at my house, like I don't have cell service where I live. So without broadband access, I wouldn't have access at all. And so for some rural communities, in person, bring a check is an option. And they latch onto that. Spaghetti dinners, right? We all go to the spaghetti dinner that's supporting the basketball team going to states next week, or whatever it might be. There could be things that you know work in your community in addition to digital fundraising that you can implement. But that interface of the digital platform helps you track and know that number. So I definitely encourage people to think offline if that is something that their community needs. And you know your community best, your partners know their communities best. If for them that's an issue, have them think about ways that they can engage their donors in person, over the phone, whatever it might be.
Thanks, Victoria. Wendy, any experience with the spotty internet, unstable internet?
We didn't really have any problems with unstable internet. We have pretty good service in our community, although not everybody has it, but we're still, enough people did that that was not a big concern for us. But we're looking forward to better internet when we finally get broadband, Victoria. We're looking forward to that.
And Kirk, what's been your experience?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we haven't had a whole lot of feedback that's been an issue, thank goodness. But access is certainly a problem in our community. The one thing, like Victoria said, that has been a big help is that we do very much allow and also encourage offline donations. And there are definitely some that do a lot of offline fundraising, and that's totally fine with us. The one thing that, and this is just a recommendation because we did offer this the first year and not that many people took advantage of it, but consider libraries in your communities a really big resource for this. We did set up like a help center at our most local library. And I think that there's a really good opportunity to do that in some of your most rural communities. The platforms are typically very, very easy to use. I know GivGab's is. So we were able to train some of the library staff in like 25 minutes on how they would be able to assist people in making a donation. So that's an option for you if you have that concern as well.
That's a really, really smart idea. Thank you. We've got another question here. Do you have nonprofits that expect Giving Days to be a magic bullet and that they will have a successful fundraising day by simply being on the Giving Day platform without any efforts? How do you combat this? And this, I kind of see it as the, like, if you build it, they will come, which is not, you need to build it and then promote it and then they will come. And Wendy, you unmuted. Do you have thoughts on this?
I do. We had several that had that. They thought all they needed to do was just register. And then, I mean, I even had to help them register. And then this would be something that then money would pour into their account. That didn't happen. So this year we are already in the process of getting the lady who did the best job of our organizations on the tour to go around and talk to the folks who didn't do such a good job. The other thing that we have that is maybe a little different, we also are opening our platform other times during the year, other times than just Giving Tuesday. And so we're hoping to maybe get a little traction with those organizations at other times as we build up to our big giving day on Giving Tuesday.
Awesome. Kirk, have you had experience with this?
It definitely happens. There's always a couple. Like Wendy said, I think the best thing that you can do is, especially after you have an organization that has proven success, is to, kind of use them as your poster child. Yeah, I mean, we have just about every year since the first, we've had a webinar where we allow them to speak and provide some of their strategies. You should also really encourage your organizations to be collaborative and talk to one another, pitch ideas off of each other. So that's been a big help. And we do also have a check presentation celebration, and we give them the opportunity to give us a little bit of feedback. So when I start to hear that, that's a great opportunity to say, well, look at this organization over here and what they were able to do. Can you work with them for a little bit of support? And that's been really successful.
Victoria?
Yeah, I'm going to get really nerdy. And one of the things that I look at, so I'm on a board of a small nonprofit in my area as well, and we participate as a participating organization in the Giving Day. So I'm like, I've got all the views. And we actually look at it as our percent of budget, because we only raise for the year $25,000 to run our program. It's a volunteer run summer camp that happens one weekend. So it's pretty low cost. And so we raised $3,000 as part of our Giving Day. And that's like huge for us. That's more than 10% of our budget. So to someone else, $3,000 might look like a drop in the bucket, but for us, it's an incredible start to giving season. So I encourage you, when you're talking with partners, to think about, like, yeah, the big number is really, really awesome. But if you're a small organization and you get 10% of your budget on one day, like, that's success, right? So thinking about how you're talking to organizations, and I like firmly believe that like everyone can be successful on a Giving Day when you frame it and have them think about what is success.
Awesome. We've had some small organizations say they get 50% of their operating budget for the year from participating in one of these events. So I think that's a great way to think about it. Leslie had a question. My organization has areas in operation in both major towns and also rural communities. What are ways I can have my major communities support my smaller towns? I'll throw it to any of you to see if you've got thoughts on that.
I think that's a really good question. And again, I don't know if this is maybe unique to a community like ours, but in a lot of situations, the services provided by those nonprofits have significant overlap geographically. So that's something that we try to tell them that they need to be very upfront about, and make sure that they're marketing, that even though you may live in this community, we serve your community and have an impact there. So that's been a part of it. And likewise, we make sure to tell them that, being a part of the greater network. So, all of the organizations are listed regardless of where they are in the grand scheme of large community, small community. And we hope that one-stop shop nature creates some synergy among all of those communities. And they'll say, yes, this organization is serving the greater good of the community that I live in, maybe outside of my immediacy.
Love that approach. Wendy?
Our biggest community is really that's our big population center, and that's really the only one. We have, you know, outlying neighborhoods and things like that that are, I guess you would call them neighborhoods. It's pretty rural here. So we don't really, you know, if you get a newspaper in our community, it's the newspaper. If you listen to the radio or so, you know, we got all of the elected officials involved. So our county mayor, our city mayor, all of those folks, and they all did, you know, I took pictures of them holding the sign that says, I give because blah, 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 and posted all of those things. So I don't know that how our big community can do something for the outlying communities is it's kind of all the same group. But I agree that we really work hard to be seen as United Way of Greene County and know that a lot of the needs that we see are in the county, not necessarily in Greenville itself. And we do focus on that a lot through our regular campaign as well as through Giving Tuesday.
I want to jump on and just say, similarly to Wendy, we have the large city I'm in, right? Large is relative, right? 20,000 people city. But we did have a few large cities with like 15 to 20,000 that did have their own newspaper. And one of the things that we were really cognizant of is highlighting specifically what was happening in that city in the press release that went to that newspaper, that went to the radio stations that are played in that area. And I know that's if your rural areas kind of are in the vicinity, those people in the larger city are going to hear then about specifically the rural communities in their county and what's happening. And so that's the way that, like, I'd have 12, we had 15 counties and there were 12 daily newspapers, and I'd have 12 different press releases, each one highlighting what was happening in this county. And we had 2 media markets, 2 TV stations. And so the Eastern press release featured the Eastern counties and the Western press release featured the Western counties. And we tried our best to make sure that in all of our promotion, it was specific to the area that was going to be reading the information. And so when you are talking in those larger cities that have the outlying small communities, just making sure that you're highlighting the smaller community work the same way you highlight the larger community work. That'd be my advice.
Perfect. That's really great advice. We've got a few more questions. I know we're running out of time. Nora wants to know when you guys would recommend starting promoting your Giving Tuesday, Giving Day within your community. Kirk, you've been doing this longest. What's your approach?
Yeah, I mean, it's there all year. We certainly ramped that up. We actually open registration for our day about 6 months in advance of the actual day, so that there is a very, very long time frame that gives them lots of opportunity to get registered, gives us lots of opportunity to promote the day overall to the community, without like trying to cram that all into a month, 2 month space where the message can get a little bit lost. So I would plan early to give yourself a lot of time. And to be quite frankly, it's going to save you so many headaches so that you're not trying to dedicate 24 hours to it, you know, every single day for a month.
I would say now. Now is the time to start.
Love that.
I agree now, but if you don't start now, I also have 90-day and 30-day workbooks. So if you decide in October you want to do this, Eric will call me. I'll send him the link to the 30-day workbook.
Let's stick with the 90-day.
Yeah.
If you were to work with someone like GivGab, we require 90 days, and we want everybody to be successful. But we've seen it. We've seen the scramble of 30 days. But you will not be sleeping at midnight. I can assure you that if you do it in 30 days. And Katie has a question about: have you guys had success getting members of the community to celebrate less the big number of what's been raised and more like just the success of like a $20 donor of like those individual communities.
Yeah, just to jump in first, I would say that, that is really the nature of the Giving Day, and that is what we celebrate. For the most part, you may be lucky and you may have a $50,000 gift during your Giving Day, but I would say more than likely that's going to be the exception to the rule. And what you're going to see is going to be the accumulation of those $20 gifts that add up. So yeah, that really is the nature of what we celebrate. I mean, do we certainly try to get them to incentivize those with matches and challenges and sponsorships? Yes. But the most successful thing is that $20. And the one thing that I would add is that all of our prizes focus on donors, not on dollars. And that is a really, really excellent way to celebrate that, because the gift can be $5. It can be $100,000. It counts the exact same.
I think that if you're not focusing, or if you're not telling stories about your donors, maybe not as much as you're telling the stories about recipients of assistance, but you should definitely be telling stories about your donors anyway, because they have as interesting stories as the folks who they support, in my opinion. So we typically always we pull out some donors that we get stories from and share those no matter what kind of fundraising we're doing. And it's more interesting if it's the donors of lesser amounts, because everybody knows the donors of large amounts.
I agree with what Kurt and Wendy said. And I just like to remind everyone that anyone can be a giver. And that's the beauty of a Giving Day, right? Is that there are no thresholds to participating. If it's $5, if it's $500, everyone is welcome to give. And highlighting the total number of donors is just as awesome as highlighting the big number.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point to end us on here. I know we're coming up on time. We have a few additional questions. I've written them down so I can share them with our panelists, but we really appreciate everybody taking the time to meet with us today, hear these tremendous advice and stories from our rural community leaders. And if you're interested in trying to bring something like this to your community, feel free to reach out with Molly and I after the fact. We're also going to share the recording of the call once it's available to us, so be on the lookout for that. But Victoria, Wendy, Kirk, Molly, thank you all so much for taking the time, having this conversation today. And I'm excited for this Giving Tuesday. I get excited every Giving Tuesday, but I'll set my alarm for midnight, Wendy, and we can talk and see how things go. Thanks, everybody.